Hello lovely people, it's Victoria. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. I am trying something a little different where I actually flipped my phone screen so I can't see myself on the screen, because I've been working on a lot of content recently and I'm kind of tired of looking at myself, but I really wanted to film this video. I feel like it's probably not healthy for me to look at myself the amount that I have been with editing and watching back my videos and things like that. I have basically cleared out my vault of old videos, except for one that I honestly might end up editing and putting up anyway, even though it's 4 months old and not really relevant anymore, but it's just this 10-minute addendum to my Tana Rosanna video. I might still do it just so I can feel that sense of closure of finally emptying my vault. But I am coming at you with a new video, but it is a concept that I've had on the list for forever. I'm gonna actually look in the lens. This is gonna be crazy. This is a whole new world. So if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I make a wide variety of videos of kind of different genres, mainly music and personal story time videos, and quite a bit of commentary. It's been a little less commentary lately because I got really into the story time, more personally oriented videos, and I don't really upload on a super consistent schedule. Sometimes I go 2 weeks without uploading anything, and then other times, like now, I upload 3 videos in a day. So, but I like to think we have fun here, so please consider subscribing. I mentioned this in all my videos, but I'm working on my record. I haven't worked on it in a few days, but I do want it to be done sometime this year. I was hoping for it to be done by my birthday, but that didn't end up happening, and I'm kind of I don't even end up really stacking vocals or having any harmonies on it, and I might end up working on that, but I kind of just want to get this shit out already, and then maybe I can rework it later if I want. But right now I've kind of fallen back into I just want to make content and just talk about shit and kind of take a little bit of a break, because I'm starting to have some mental pressure in my head about having that done, the record. So, but this video is going to be kind of a true combination of commentary and personally oriented stuff. It's just kind of like a personal commentary, I guess. So it's basically about OnlyFans and the pornification, over sexualization of our culture, kind of exemplified by Phillips and Bonnie Blue and the Bop House, but mostly it is from my own personal perspective and about how my mindset around a lot of issues regarding sexuality and how women express it has evolved, and how my own past decisions and my perspective on it has evolved. So we will get into it. I am a little nervous to make this. I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up uploading it, but it's one of those that I'm oh, this is vulnerable, because it's another one of those where I am referencing my past experience having experimented in online adult content, and I know that by doing this I am possibly preventing it from remaining in the ether like I would like it to. But I will talk about just different things that I've done that has made that hard for me anyway, and people that know me and in my hometown and stuff are probably aware of it, and so I'm just trying to come to peace with what I have done and just own the narrative and just be honest about it, and whatever happens will happen either way. And so I'm just going to own it pretty much, because I have quite a bit of anxiety about it. We're gonna dive into all of it, don't worry. Almost 5 years ago now, I began webcamming, and I webcammed on and off for a few months when I was 21 years old. It was during the pandemic. Oh, and of course I have my virgin beverage on deck. Right now it's just LaCroix and orange juice. LaCroix always has to be present. Also, I don't really go into it in this video, but it is interesting how with this rise of pornification, over sexualization, OnlyFans culture, there's also been this rise of the trad wife and conservative culture. It is an interesting juxtaposition and interesting timing, in my opinion. That was just more of an observation. So yeah, I am a little nervous about this, but I kind of have a lot to say about it, and I feel like it is pretty relevant to the discourse that I've seen a lot of other creators talk about, including some that I really, really like Stephanie Lang, and I just saw a really good, I don't know how to say their last name, but I just saw a really good Khadija video about it as well. So this is a pretty broad and complex issue, and it has a lot of little facets and bullet points to get through, so hopefully I'm able to present this in a somewhat cohesive way that makes some level of sense. But I've been thinking about making this since December, honestly, and the inspiration for it was when I found out about Lily Phillips and that stunt that she did where she had sex with 100 people in 24 hours. And then it kind of expanded into this larger sort of thing, and then also bringing in my own experience. So we're just going to get into it. But I want to make a couple of things. We have a few larger ideas that I just want to get out there, and then I'm going to expand on each of them. So first, I personally do not believe that having a lot of sex or being sexually promiscuous is inherently immoral. I think the way that you do it can be immoral, but I don't think just the act of, as an adult, having consensual sex with other adults and being safe and responsible about it, even if you have sex with a lot of people and y'all are, single, or if they're, not single, there is open communication, if they're in an open relationship, polyamorous, whatever. But like, if it's being done ethically, safely, and responsibly with consenting adults, I personally don't believe that promiscuity is inherently immoral. Y'all can disagree with me, feel free to let me know, but that is my belief. And with that being said, doing it irresponsibly can be, at the very least, extremely irresponsible and reckless, and can speak badly on your character, in my opinion, especially if you are a sex worker or you're making that a huge part of your brand and identity, and you're therefore like promoting it or minimizing it or glorifying it to other people, especially young people. In the case of Lily Phillips, for example, in that documentary that Josh dude made about her, she has this moment where basically I understand why a lot of sex workers denounce her and want to distance themselves from her, because this one moment in particular, she basically doesn't know that HIV can be transmitted through bodily fluids in the mouth, basically semen in the mouth, and she's like, is that where it comes from? You can get HIV from having, semen in your mouth. She doesn't say it like that, but, and he's like, yeah. So just like basics of how STDs are transmitted and different aspects of sexual safety, she has seemed completely ignorant to, and like she had not made any effort to educate herself on that before having sex with dozens and then over 100 people in a day. And ultimately it was those guys' decisions to have sex with her, but just the carelessness with which she treated that, and also the fact that she and her team were showing preference to people with negative STI tests, implying that that wasn't a deal breaker, just shows a complete disregard for how an event like this could just be a super spreader event for STIs. And in my opinion, that doesn't speak super positively to her character. Second, I have always had kind of an issue with people making assumptions about why people do sex work in general, really. I just have always kind of resented when people make just blanket general assumptions about, oh, they must hate themselves, they must think that that's their only sense of worth, they must not have a moral compass, they'll do anything for attention, they'll do anything for money, they have no sense of morality, they must think they can't do anything else, they must not love themselves. I've disagreed with that. But also at the same time, as I've matured, I've realized that my resentment towards that mindset also lacked nuance, and how in a lot of cases that could be true. It really just depends on the person. I'm just uncomfortable making assumptions about how someone feels about themselves, really in general. But at the same time, like, if you're behaving in an ugly way, then, it can be fair to assume how someone feels about themselves. Like that freaking Pilates girl, that thing that happened like a few months ago, that girl was like, if you're 200 pounds, you shouldn't be in a Pilates class, and if you're there's no way you should be an instructor if you have a gut and you're fat. I think it's fair to assume that she probably does not like herself, and she ended up confirming that she dealt with insecurity, and she perpetuated that through her vitriol towards larger people. So it can be reasonable, but yeah, I've had like a bit of a bias towards making assumptions about, people's self-esteem or sense of self-worth, specifically as it relates to like how they express their sexuality. I think my issue more so was just with the blanket nature of that assumption, rather than me thinking that that is never true in any situation, because that also lacks nuance. So I do feel uncomfortable with that, but at the same time, I've come to realize like the validity of what a lot of people were saying when it came to Lily Phillips, specifically that what she was doing to herself was a form of self-harm. And it started to sink in for me a little more. I actually saw one comment in particular that really opened my eyes for me, and it said basically, she is voluntarily putting herself through what victims of sex trafficking are forced to endure. You know, having sex with dozens of people in a day. That's what, you know, victims of sexual slavery are forced to endure, and she's doing it to herself voluntarily. And between those two situations, the only difference, well, I guess there's two differences. One, that she is the main, manager of it and the agent of that situation. And two, she has more access to the money gained from that than someone in sexual slavery would. But yeah, the voluntary aspect and money. Ultimately, money is like the only real difference between those two situations. I was like, yeah, I think it is fair to say that that's a form of self-harm. So that was pretty eye-opening for me. And I don't have any personal stake in Lily Phillips. Like, I'm not a fan of her or anything. I have no investment in her character or any kind of idea of what kind of person she is. But from what I've seen of her, I feel like it's fair to say that she seems to have more of a moral compass than, say, Bonnie Blue, a rather infamous former OnlyFans creator who is allegedly my same age. Apparently, at most, she is a year older than me. She claims to be like between 26 and 27, which, sure. Honestly, maybe it is true. Either she, in my opinion, either she's lying about her age, or maybe she just like completely aged herself like 10 years by just overdoing it on a shit ton of filler. I've never seen any photos of her young self, like her younger self, before what I assume was a shit ton of surgeries. I feel petty even saying that though, because it has nothing to do really with my opinion on her behavior, but it's so obvious. It's so obvious.
It's so obvious.
So Bonnie Blue was an OnlyFans creator that apparently has been permanently banned from the platform after her most recent stunt, where she basically was planning on having a petting zoo of basically being in a glass box, naked, tied up, and letting strangers do whatever they want to her, with the ultimate goal of having sex with 2,000 guys in 24 hours. And she was banned due to violating their policy on extreme challenges. I guess she had gotten some warnings before then too, but before then she was notorious for a few things, mainly being very vocal about preferring barely legal 18-year-olds and talking about how much she loves to drain them of their virginity, and how she takes joy out of like husband sleeping with her and like being the other woman, and was very vocal about like men deserve sex, and if as a woman you're not doing the bare minimum and you're not sucking him off, then like obviously he's going to come to me and I'll do it for free, and you know, if he's cheating on you, then that's your fault, because either you're not having sex with him enough or you're not good enough at it. And comparatively speaking, it is easy to compare them, because they were like Lily and Bonnie are like two of the main figureheads, I would say, of the OF culture and that pornification. And they're very, very extreme examples. They've both done very extreme things, so they have both gotten pretty notorious. I don't know how Lily feels about those kinds of things, about, you know, having sex with barely legal 18-year-olds and married men sleeping with her, but considering what she's done, I think it's fair to say that she probably doesn't care that much about it. She's just not as vocal about it as Bonnie has been. I do feel comfortable speaking to Bonnie's moral compass based on what she has shown. I think it's fair to say that she is a fucking predator. She is on camera sexually harassing a man at his place of work, and was also on camera pretty much assaulting another man at his place of work by shoving her ass against the crotch of a security guard that was removing her from a game at a college where I guess she'd been banned. So you are a predator, and you openly talk about like lusting after barely legal 18-year-olds, and legality is your only form of moral compass. You have no regard for the possible moral implications of having sex with someone that was a teenager 5 seconds ago. So you are a predator, in my humble opinion. And it is funny to me that like these two are such figureheads of the oaf culture, considering they've both been denounced by so many other adult entertainers, including other prominent OnlyFans creators. And then just as a brief note, I have to say, you know, in the idea on the theme of barely legal 18-year-olds, you know, being in OnlyFans content, the whole existence of the Bop House is a giant, just so beyond questionable, especially the fact that I'm pretty sure, is Piper Raquel officially a member of the Bop House? I think she was officially brought into the Bop House, even though I'm pretty sure she's still 17 years old, which reminds me of a practice that rhymes with the word brooming, allegedly. Then again, most of that was done by her mother, allegedly, to be fair. So, but outside of those specific examples, this leads to like, I think one of the main cruxes of the issue, and like one of the big questions is like the conflation of sex work with empowerment. And for me, I've come to the place where like two things can be true at the same time. So it can be true, which to me it is, that sex workers who are operating safely, responsibly, and ethically are still deserving of respect and basic human decency. And that can be true without thinking that sex work in and of itself is inherently empowering, which I would not say that it is. However, I think it should be acknowledged that it can create a sense of empowerment. And the sense of empowerment is legitimate, especially if it's coming from a place of trying to regain control where you feel like you don't have any. And this leads to kind of my story. So like I talked about this in a past video, August of 2020 during the pandemic. That's when the possibility of me doing adult content just opened wide up for me. And I just felt like the complete just lens shift, like everything just completely changed for me. My perspective, it just opened wide and I was like, whoa, it was just this whole world of possibility. And it started when I saw a video, haven't mentioned the specific creator, but it was Gwen Gwiz, who made a video about why she started an OnlyFans. This is like way before the trad wife arc, way before that. Yeah, after she had started an OnlyFans, talking about why she had done it and how it was so empowering for her and she was able to get so much money and she bought a car and blah, blah, blah. And she acknowledged some of the risk factors, like how in the future, you know, her kids might be affected by it or stuff like that. I don't think she really acknowledged the potential dangers of doing that, in my opinion, but that's like a slight side note because I don't want to put too much, you know, on her or on any influencer really that's like talking about it or even possibly glorifying it. Like, it's not great. But for me, I was still a 21-year-old adult that ended up thinking about it for weeks afterward and made as close to an informed decision as I think I was capable of at the time, and ultimately it was my decision. It is worrisome that I know that not everyone consuming that content are, you know, 21-year-old adults, but it is what it is, I guess. But I look back and actually really relate to where Gwen was at that time because a big impetus, yes, I believe I'm using that word correctly. A big like inspiration for Gwen getting into OnlyFans was the fact that nude photos of her were leaked without her consent. And then she wanted to basically make money off of the objectification of her that was happening, whether or not she wanted it. So it was a totally different situation, but I really relate to that sense of like getting empowerment from regaining control of the narrative through expressing your sexuality. Maybe in situations or after situations where you were sexualized, whether you wanted to or not. You know, I've talked before a few months ago about being groped at the age of 18 and then afterward having just this constant feeling of like obligation towards people, not wanting to disappoint people in sexual situations, just feeling like I owed things to people and like my consent was negotiable, or that, yeah, just not wanting to disappoint, this need to please. And then I think my burnout with that kind of manifested in an extreme way, and that stir craziness that I was talking about, you know, at 18, 19, whatever, really amplified by 21. And I was aware of, you know, the societal stigma, but also, yeah, the idea that people are gonna catcall me or feel entitled to my body anyway, so I might as well make money off of it and show it on my own terms and in a way that I feel comfortable with. And also, people are gonna judge me for, people are always gonna judge you for anything that they want to judge you for. So my mindset was like, I shouldn't let that affect the way that I make money if I could potentially make a lot of money from this. And in a lot of ways, I do still see where I was coming from. And again, this might be a hot take, but like I was saying, I believe sex work can be honest work if you are doing it safely, responsibly, ethically. When I say safely, I mean in terms of like protection and stuff, but obviously safeguarding yourself as well, that's important. I don't think not safeguarding yourself necessarily means it's less honest work, but just it's important for you to protect yourself. But if you are educated and you are practicing, safe sex and you're doing it responsibly, ethically, I think sex work is honest work. And you can disagree with that if you want. That's my belief. Like I said, I was frustrated with the notion that making money off your body or your sexuality meant you couldn't make money off your intelligence or your talent. And I didn't really realize how naive this was, but I just got this really rebellious spirit. I'm probably going to use the word rebel and rebellious a lot because that really was what it was. I just wanted to rebel against these notions by just proving that I could do both and that I could defy those societal norms. I don't know why I thought that I would be like the anomaly, but I wanted to prove that I could defy that. And I also wanted to, I wanted to walk through the fear of aligning with the negative stereotypes that someone might have of someone doing that and sitting in that fear of being whatever people might think or say and still feeling okay with myself anyway and still proving that I could be okay. But it was a massive gamble in the name of rebellion, I guess. But also at 21, I still, even though I really thought that I was making an informed decision, one, I did it in really dumb ways. I will talk about it, but even though I was 21, my brain still was not fully developed. So being 26 now and having a fully developed brain and looking back, I see how for me, my decision was influenced by trauma and that's that sense of wanting to regain control, and in circumstances that you feel like you can't control, even to the point of like, Google is going to take all my data and do whatever it wants with it anyway. And the big tech companies they probably know everything about me anyway, and they can access all my photos anyway. And people will probably see me naked anyway without me knowing. So I might as well make money off of it. It's a sense of trying to reconcile this sense of powerlessness with different circumstances through, just walking through that fear and living out that stereotype and trying to prove that you could be okay regardless. And having gone through other things since then, like being robbed at knife point, which I just uploaded my story time about, that happened after I had stopped. But even then, that kind of reaffirmed that mindset for me in a lot of ways of like, yes, it cannot be overstated how dangerous sex work is and how vulnerable of a position you are putting yourself in by doing it. Specifically on the internet is forever. It is hard for it to sink in sometimes how the internet is forever for me, I will admit. But at the same time, like, life is inherently dangerous. Like, I almost still have that counter argument of like, life is inherently dangerous. Being a cashier is dangerous. Being a teacher or a paramedic is dangerous. Being a bartender is dangerous, with just the likelihood of shootings and just anything could happen at just any time. And having, some level of PTSD symptoms and just being able to, just sit on my front porch on a quiet, super calm day and just be like, the world could just collapse under my feet right now. And just being that acutely aware of just how dangerous life is, like, all the time, it does distort your perspective of what is dangerous and what risks should I and should I not put myself in, specifically in the name of making money. And also, I was aware of the fact that if anything were to happen to me, my trauma would just automatically be less legitimate in the eyes of law enforcement because, in their opinion, I would have been asking for it. I would have been putting myself in that situation. And I was aware of it, but I just wanted to do it anyway in order to rebel against it, I guess. But in some ways, I do look back and I don't regret it, but I do wish that I leaned into that healthy sense of fear a little bit more, and that I had realized that, like, you can resent and disagree with a societal norm while also acknowledging how much safer you might be by following it. And it's funny, Stephanie Lang made a really good video called OnlyFans is a Scam a few months ago, and it really put in perspective for me how ironic that motivation of trying to seek control was. You know, the idea of regaining control when I feel like I don't have any. It's really fucking ironic when I've come to realize, like, how little control I have over what happens to that content now. Now I personally can't even find, like, my old shows, really. Like, I can't even find it, but, like, I would never put anything past people on the internet, truly. And she had this moment in the video of, like, would you be okay if this were to resurface in 10 years time? And even thinking that I was making an informed decision, had an idea of the future, I really had no actual idea or concept of 10 years time. And I still don't really, you know? And I know that the world could just, you know, crumble under my feet, and that could come back to haunt me. That also kind of motivates me to own the narrative myself anyway, because I know that I can't control what people choose to do with that. If they choose to find it, if they choose to hold it against me, whatever. Or people that just are aware of this now that choose to inherently judge me because of what I've done in my past. I know that I can't control that. But that is something to consider. It is legitimate that someone would want to feel more in control and would feel empowered by doing that, but in turn, you are surrendering so much control and agency over what ends up happening to that content. And it does stress me out. I have to be honest, it does stress me out, not knowing where my career is going to go, not knowing if my audience is ever going to grow, and how this could possibly affect my career prospects, how this could affect my ability to achieve my dreams if, you know, a band that I want to open up for decides that I don't fit with their brand, or they morally disagree with me and so they reject me, whatever. You don't know how seriously someone's going to take something like that. All I can really do is just use authenticity as my main currency and just try to use it to connect with people and hope that people find value in that. And if, you know, any potential employers, if they are aware of it, that they see the value in that as well. But I get that that's probably really naive too. But again, it's probably just me trying to maintain some sense of control after feeling really stuck in a job market that has rejected me in a lot of different ways at a lot of different times in a lot of different industries. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate, especially in this economy. But also I feel more justified addressing it and owning it now because I know the dumb shit that I did in the past, like advertising one of my subscription accounts on my personal Instagram account, even though multiple sources that I was researching told me not to do that, and to completely dissociate any, you know, personal social media accounts from that. And I read that and I did the complete opposite just for the sake of, like, boosting my numbers. And maybe it did make a dent in my numbers, but it feels fair to say that I sacrificed a lot of my dignity by doing that. And then from there, I realized this comparison that I haven't seen a lot of people make. OnlyFans in particular, it really just seems like a slightly more explicit MLM. It's pretty much just like an NSFW branded MLM. Pretty much all the creators will openly flaunt how much money they're making, especially in response to any hate that they get, and they'll just show all the cash they have, and I make months worth of rent in a day, and showing, you know, the cars and the houses, especially in response to any criticism, which, like, maybe I'm just super old-fashioned, but, like, I just find it so tacky. But they'll only ever focus on the lifestyle, the money, the cars, the houses, everything and how you can do it too, and you can do it so easily as long as you make sure to sign up under their referral code so that they can make a percentage of your earnings for your account's entire lifetime. For the entire time that you make content on this platform, they are taking a percentage of your earnings. And that business model inherently motivates them to continue perpetuating that sugar-coated viewpoint and that sugar-coated sanitized version of the lifestyle. Including with Sophie Rain calling the Bop House, we're just a little girl group, like minimizing it to appeal to people, specifically young people who want to make money, and just only focusing on that and not really addressing the dangers of it at all. And that's a huge similarity to MLMs, is that the people who are already in it are financially motivated to inspire other people to join so that their income will then inflate their own. And a big thing they focus on also is how easy it is and how you can do it in, pockets of time. I haven't really heard like OF creators say that, but like a lot of it is like, you don't even have to show that much. You don't even have to, do X-rated stuff. You can just do bikini pics. You can do stuff you do on Instagram anyway. So you might as well just make money from it. And they don't acknowledge the demand and how, one, like, you have to have a consistent volume of content. And in order to keep your subscribers engaged, you have to consistently up the ante and show variety and just show different things to keep them interested. And that's why I feel like a lot of those subscription-based platforms are just inherently super brutal to keep up on. Like, they're just really cutthroat and just really intense to maintain. It really takes like a huge level of grit and commitment. And also I find that a lot of the creators don't really talk about, one, the dangers of it, but also the aspects of the lifestyle that are keeping them stuck in it. And a big example is Sophie Rain, because I remember this video of her as a kid, and she was asked what she wanted to be when she grew up, and she said a doctor and an astronaut. She then ends up making, tens of millions of dollars and is still just in that career. And maybe she's completely happy with it, and maybe she's had a, personal change where she just wants that career. She doesn't want to be a doctor or an astronaut, and she doesn't really want anything else for herself. But from an outside perspective, it's like, you now have the financial means to go to school, to start a business, to do whatever you want, but you're just continuing to stay in that lifestyle. And it makes me curious as to what aspects of the lifestyle are just making people have to keep themselves in it in order to keep that money train going so that they can continue selling the sugar-coated version of the lifestyle. I don't know. That's a big question mark for me. And I imagine once you get into it, you get a rude awakening as to how fucking hard it is to maintain, because, say it with me, sex work is real work. Adult content creation is, at the end of the day, content creation. And that is such a brutal, difficult fucking industry to make a sustainable income in. So much of it is just by chance, by just individual preference and subjectivity, and also just timing and who happens to be, recommended to you. If you want to make it and make a sustainable income beyond just having like a few really good days, you have to dedicate yourself to it. You have to make consistently high quality content. And that's another big reason why I didn't really end up making it as a webcam model, because like, y'all see how inconsistently I upload on this fucking channel. And also I think the money stopped coming in for me as much because I started trying to raise my prices and was a little slower to show as much as I was in the beginning, because I basically just smartened up. So the money wasn't flowing in as much, and then I wasn't as consistent with it as I know a lot of other people are. So it is a serious job, and it takes serious time and energy and creativity and time management. So my mindset ultimately was like, I have to give all this time and energy to this for not the same financial reward that I was before, because at the end of the day, money was my primary motivator. Like, I just have to be real about that. So I might as well just put this towards something that I'm more passionate about, that I ultimately want to do anyway. So with all that being said, we're going to go into, basically, to end this video, pretty much an advice segment. I am not trying to promote this. I am not trying to glorify this. Hopefully you have watched this all the way through and you have talked about you've heard me talk about the lingering anxiety that I deal with on a pretty much constant basis, and how I feel like there's just a bomb that's just could go off at any moment and completely blow up my fucking life. And so I might as well help it along by just owning it and acknowledging it in my own words. But if you've gone through all of that and you've really, really thought about it, and you really think you're going to enjoy this career, you're going to get a lot out of it, you are prepared for the ramifications, the possible downsides, I just want to speak to y'all in a real ass way, because 2/3 of my audience is female, and of all the age sectors, the one that watches my content the most is 18 to 24. And I was smack dab in the middle of that age range when I decided to start making this content. So if you happen to fit, even if you don't fit in that category, but if you happen to be, contemplating this, even with all that, maybe you're like me and you are super just set on it, and you just really are convinced that you know what you're doing and you're going to make an informed decision and you're going to be happy with it. I will be real with you, and I will tell you what I wish I had known. One, I'll say this anyway, I really, 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 really recommend waiting until you're 25. At least 25. I've heard some people say you should wait till you're at least 21. I personally think 25. Wait till you have a fully developed brain. Because I can basically guarantee you will feel tremendously different about it at 25 than you do now. You will be so much more aware of the possible downsides. You will have such a better sense of the implications and long-term consequences of your actions just by nature and by design of your brain. You will be better equipped to handle the ramifications of it at 25. I so emphatically implore you to please wait until you're 25. If you're desperate for money, exhaust all other options, I beg you, until you are 25. Because at 26, I can say with my whole chest that I have a very different perspective on it, and I feel way more aware of the possible consequences than I did at 21, even though I was so sure that I was making an informed decision and I was considering it fully. And just side note, I personally think the bare minimum age to make adult content should be 21 instead of 18. I personally think you have absolutely no business making any kind of adult content at 18. So again, I strongly recommend waiting until you're 25. I cannot stress that enough, and I can basically guarantee you that you will be happy that you waited. So with that being said, with OnlyFans in particular, it has been said a lot, but I will say it again, that the majority of people making a shit ton of money on OnlyFans are the people that already had built-in platforms. And that motivated me to make the dumbass decision of advertising those things on my personal platforms, because I thought that that would get me better numbers, even though I ended up not doing OnlyFans. I did another service. But if you're going to do anything like that, and there are a lot of other subscription-based platforms as well besides OnlyFans, particularly ones that are like more geared towards sex work, whether it's Is My Girl or Frisk or whatever it is you're doing. If you want to have any kind of subscription-based income like that, you likely, and you don't have a built-in audience already, you likely will want to explore other avenues, whether it's webcamming or other forms of adult content or friggin' feet pics, whatever it is you choose to do. I personally, if you really are dead set that you want to do adult content, I'm not promoting it or saying it's the best career, the smartest career every girl should do, but if you really are set on doing it, I personally recommend webcamming, because I think that in comparison to other things that I'm aware of, it allows you for the most agency and control, and that you decide what you do, you decide when you work, you decide who's in your room, you decide how people speak to you, you decide your own personal boundaries of what you will and won't do, what you will and won't put up with. You don't have to appease any creepy producer or creepy agent, because if you don't, then they won't get you a gig. You don't have to deal with any of that political garbage. And then from there, people might want to go to your subscription-based platform to get more exclusive content. And if you truly believe that you can consistently put out high quality content and keep your subscribers engaged, then freaking have at it. But just be aware that it is a lot of work. It is a real job. It is a whole ass job. So with all that being said, I'm really interested to see if I actually end up posting this video. I think I will, but that was a lot. I'm going to probably go sing What It Sounds Like from K-Pop Demon Hunters. We broke into a million pieces and we can't go back, but I'm seeing all the beauty in the broken glass, and here are a few pieces of the broken glass that is my life. And so I wanted to share some of the wisdom of that with you. I understand I'm probably opening myself up to a hell of a lot of judgment and really putting myself out there, but again, it's probably gonna happen either way, and I've done what I've done. It is what it is, and I've kind of just been getting over the metaphorical hangover that I have from my early to mid 20s, and I'm just trying to make peace with it through radical honesty, I guess. So hopefully y'all took something from this and it made a modicum of sense. I really hope you let me know what you think and consider subscribing. I make videos on a not at all regular basis on quite a few different things. Basically, whatever I feel like talking about, whenever I feel like talking about it. And then music when I feel like doing that too. So I hope you stick around. I really appreciate you, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye!